We're focusing on 4 main ethical frameworks in this class and trying to look at how each of them has been applied or can be applied in the food ethics context. So one that I want to discuss now is often called divine command theory. It's probably the oldest of all of the frameworks that we're considering and maybe the most popular. It's basically, as the name suggests, the thought that we should do the things that we are commanded to do by the creator of the universe and of us, namely God, or some gods. So the thought would be, we are mere finite creatures who don't have access to all of the relevant information, or we don't have the right kind of authority to generate principles and rules of morality for ourselves. Instead, we should follow the rules communicated to us, at least the very general principles communicated to us somehow by a god or by the god. And so we need, of course, some sort of connection to this information. What's God telling us, and how are we supposed to know what he or she wants us to do? A lot of religious traditions will then invoke sacred texts of various sorts, kind of revelation from prophets or sacred authors, various tribunals and councils also giving us principles. Some others will invoke the thought that God might have given us a moral sense or a conscience, and so we get delivered kind of intuitively to us some of God's basic commands regarding what we ought to do. So even if you're not kind of quoting scripture, you might still be a divine command theorist who thinks God is the ultimate source of the authority of these principles, but it comes to us through a certain kind of inbuilt mechanism. You might also think that reason is this faculty that Kant and the deontologists and the utilitarians all focus on and want to use, that reason could also be the source of principles that ultimately get their authority from God. So maybe God gave us reason, or maybe God is reason or rational. And so insofar as our reason tracks some ethical principles, we should think of them as given by God or somehow getting their authority from God. So it's a flexible position that can use a lot of different faculties or sources of ethical information, but the main point is that the authority of these principles, the fundamental source of their kind of normative command over us, is because God, the right sort of commander or authority, a perfectly good God who of course wants the best for us and for the world, has laid them down as principles that we and all other beings ought to follow.